Welcome back to Daily Driven Alpha. Quick project update. A little bit of work as we start to reassemble the car and clean up and reinstall brake lines and start to mock up everything just to make sure we're happy with where it goes. But as you would have seen in previous updates, we weren't happy with a couple of panels of paint, so we've resprayed them, and at the moment you can see where our blend line is. We're just re-blocking down, colour sanding this surface and getting it to where we want it to be, and then we'll polish that up. The rest of the car's looking pretty good, but what I'll do is I'll show you this panel here, and you'll get to see it a little bit better before we started. So we broke through in the paint here, and rather than try and blend it in with a touch-up gun, what we've done is we've masked off this entire panel, and you'll be able to see, hopefully in the light, just to here, we've blended it in, and we've blended up the C-pillar a bit, which we'll need to sand down. And then you'll also notice here in the light, you'll be able to see that there is a folded tape line where we've blended and sprayed, and you can see the overspray, the dry paint there. And so we'll end up block sanding back up here into this top panel here, up the pillar and across the back area, and we'll block all that down again, and then we'll repolish it. So, you know, the trials and tribulations. We also broke through on a back corner here, so we've resprayed that. And unfortunately, don't know if you can see it, a piece of plastic blew up when we weren't looking, and it landed against the paint while it was wet. So what we've done is, because we had a slow reducer and a slow hardener in there, we've let this sit for a week, and it's settled out a bit, and we're hoping, even though I can feel that, we're hoping that we can sand that back and get it to a finish that is as good as the rest of the car. So that's where we're at the moment. You can see a couple of little things going in, boot latch going in, pedal base, and we've got the boot in, and of course everyone talks about it, the rubber splitting. Now with these new market rubbers, I don't think they're as good as the originals. What we did was we took a knife and we split it down the seam a little bit further so we could get that through with some rubber grease. Unfortunately, this one's peeled apart a little bit more, but at the end of the day, we think that'll be okay. And we've greased up and reassembled the bracket, put it in. So that's sitting there under the car, and we've also put in our cylinder, our brake cylinder there, master, mocked it up, put some lines in, and bolted that in. So a little bit of progress, not much. We've still got more work to do on the paint to get it to where we want, but we're slowly getting there. Had some new shock absorbers and some new rubber arrived from the UK. I've started using a company over there called Veloci Sport UK, and I found them to be, they don't have as big a range as Classic Alfa, but I'm saving about $100 every time I order from them, so they're getting my business right now. So if you're ordering and you haven't used Veloci Sport in the UK, worth looking them up online and speaking to them. One thing that I do like about them is they've got a lot of second-hand parts, and so if you're looking for grills and bits and pieces that you can't find new, it's worth speaking to them. So I don't get paid for that. I'm just passing on some things that I think are worthwhile. So that's where we're at there. What I'll do is I'll also just show you an issue that we've just found with our steering box. So let me get set up and I'll bring you straight back. Okay, right. This is the Berman steering box that we pulled apart, tidied up a good 12 months ago. Checked everything out, re-shimmed, well not re-shimmed it, but just tidied it up, put a new gasket in, and put it on the shelf. And happy days. Well, we pulled it apart and we went to put some lube in, which we've done, but on assembling it and testing it out, unfortunately this is what we can hear, which is not a very nice sound. And I think that's coming out of we looked at the worm gear, I think it's coming out of this back bearing here and in the center shaft here where the ball bearings also sit. So we're going to have to pull this apart again and take everything out, have a look at it. Now we're either going to find some pitting on the worm gear, which I think is probably likely, but I think we're going to find issues with the bearings and probably the ball bearings internally. And I know that up in here is a needle bearing that is pressed on that is really difficult to deal with. But we'll look at the bearings here, and it may be that we end up getting some new ball bearings. We might have to get someone to reface the worm gear if it needs it, and then we'll see what happens from there. So a little bit of a setback for us, which was a bit disappointing, but nevertheless, I guess it's all part of rebuilding classic cars. So unless I can find the spare steering box that I've got lying around, we'll get this one back up and running. So there you go. Sounds like we're stirring broken glass. Not very nice. So that's where we're at the moment, and I'll get back to finishing today's mission, which is this back corner that we've got to do that and do this. And I'd just like to remind everybody, don't be scared about trying. If you've got an area, I mean, you can see where we are, we're just doing this out in the open. We resprayed this outside. Unfortunately it was a bit windy and there's little bits of dust and stuff that got in the paint, but it doesn't matter. You can start to sand this stuff out. So you'll see there's little fish eyes and little marks. There was a little bug that landed on the paint, but if you use some 2000 grit or 3000 grit and you work it gently, what you can do is you can break that down, get the orange peel out and get rid of these. And then remember, you're going to use a polishing wheel and a cutting compound, and you'll cut that back again, and before you'll know it, you'll be back to a finish like this. So don't be afraid to tackle some of these jobs yourself. Just in case you're wondering why the tape, this just helps guide me to stop me from accidentally going a bit further as I'm sanding, because the blend line is here, and the last thing I want to do is while I'm sanding have a corner or something come down here and end up rubbing paint and opening up the surface down here. That would be a disaster. So a little bit of an update from the project shed. Once we start getting a few more bits and pieces in and start getting the suspension in, we'll give you an update there. Hope your projects are going well. Thanks to those of you who've commented, and there was one comment on the channel that was great about putting engines in with gearboxes. The suggestion was lift the rear of the car as you're doing it. Helps get the gearbox and engine in under the tunnel a bit easier. Good comment. Thanks for those constructive suggestions. We certainly appreciate them and share them. Thanks for following. Subscribe, like, share them with others who enjoy the channel or enjoy Alphas, and look forward to putting another post up in the next week or so.